Thanks for tuning in to Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Men for the Win is sponsored by the Grand Group with Edina Realty. Are you looking to purchase a new home in the Twin Cities area? Or perhaps you're trying to sell your current home? Whether you're upsizing or downsizing, the Grand Group with Edina Realty will meet all of your housing needs. Contact the Grand Group by emailing thegrand, G-R-A-N, group at edinarealty.com or call them by phone at 612-817-8751. The Grand Group with Edina Realty, 7-time Minneapolis St. Paul Magazine Super Agent Award winners. Men for the Win is part of the Pull Tab Sports Network, covering sports, culture, and entertainment across the Midwest. Check them out at pulltabsports.com and give them a follow on all your social media platforms at Pull Tab Sports. On this episode, David and Dan recap the Twins' 3-game series against the Philadelphia Phillies. Thanks for listening. Enjoy. Thanks for tuning into Men for the Win. My name is David Kufis. With me, as I guess occasionally here, is Dan Thompson. Dan, we normally talk even when we're not recording the show together, but I think our lives have gotten significantly busier since school has kicked off for you, and I've had a couple of things happen here with the family. We just haven't talked, and I feel like this is the first time I've talked to you in weeks.
It does feel that way. I've been traveling with my second job. Yeah, it's been crazy here, and yet you and Hogs held down the fort admirably, I must say. It made for great listening as I was going through those parts of the drive to Montana that don't have any service, so I can't be streaming anything. So luckily, I always download the episodes, David, so I can make sure I can listen no matter what happens to that signal.
It's a good plug for all the listeners to download if you can. Really helps our numbers if you could. That would be great.
If you could tell a friend, too, and then download all of our episodes, that would be really helpful, too.
Yeah, whoever that guy is, we've got a notification that somebody downloaded our entire catalog, which, I mean, they must be going on a long trip, Dan. That is one long flight. If you can listen to 6 seasons of Men for the Win.
So last episode, I will admit that I looked at the title and I thought that I might go in and make a grammatical change to the title.
I didn't text you intentionally because I knew you'd see it and I knew it would bother you. But I don't think, have you ever had to make a change to a title that I've made before?
I think there was maybe one time I had to capitalize a letter that maybe you hadn't capitalized or something.
Fair enough.
Minor quibbles. But I was listening back and I thought, how is this going to be this? And then as I was listening, first of all, thank you for calling Hogs on his weird pronunciation of fair-weathered fan. It's a fair-weather fan, Hogs.
I don't know. He kept saying it. At first I thought I misheard him, and then he kept saying it. I'm like, what are you doing?
But this is what I thought. I thought that maybe what he was referring to was himself as a fair-weathered fan. You know, as in like, he's fair to the Twins, but he's weathered and beat down, by what the Twins have been doing.
You're giving Hogs so much
credit. So I thought maybe that would be a clever, like maybe he was trying to be clever. It was kind of like a pun, right?
It's like a pun. It's a play on words.
I do get it.
But
way too much credit
for Hogs. You've known Hogs longer than I have, so maybe
infinitely more credit than Hogs should get here, Dan.
One other thing, the Phillies, isn't that a weird team name? Like, they're not the New York Yorkies or like the Kansas City Kansies. Isn't that strange?
Glass houses, Dan. We're the Minnesota Twins.
All right, so this is what's funny, is that I was thinking this through, and I thought, if I say that, David's going to come back with a metaphor, and he's going to use the glass houses one because it's Twin Cities, right? That's what you were thinking? Yeah. But what is a Philly? They've made it into this like creature that looks like an Effalump Woozle or something, like out of like Winnie the Pooh's like Honey Dreams, and yet I don't
believe that man's ever been to medical school.
I don't understand the words that just came out of your mouth.
Effalumps and Woozles. Haven't you read Winnie the Pooh or seen the animated children's shows when you were a kid? Maybe I guess I'm just too old for you. I don't know.
I'm not dead.
All right.
I don't think it's that. It's fine. It's a weird team name, but I'm not gonna. Again, the Twins and there's two guys shaking hands and they're Twin City. Like, no, it's a terrible team name, Dan.
Okay,
it needs to be like you should say the team name and people should know what it is. But when you're like, oh, I cheer for the Minnesota Twins. Why are they called the Twins? Well, let me give you a little bit of an explanation here about why they're called the Twins.
The shake hands thing. So that's Atterbury's thing. Like, in the Twins shake hands, like on the radio cast.
Yeah.
I don't think that's very interesting. Also,
I think you've been off the show for too long. Dan just comes in firing with all these like shooting from the hip. Like, here's a bunch of stuff I don't like.
Okay, but But then, too, do you get the sense that Dan Gladden doesn't like Chris Atterbury when you listen to the radio casts?
Have you no joy in your life? Is there no song in your heart?
It's like the most negative I've ever heard, Dan. I don't know. I don't really get that vibe, but maybe, I guess.
I get that vibe sometimes when Atterbury will ask a question and Dan Gladden will basically say something back to him like, "You're the dumbest person I've ever met." He doesn't say that, but it's the way that he says it comes across that way to me. Maybe I'm reading into this radio relationship more than I ought.
Well, do you think there's people out there who think that I hate you, Dan?
No, I don't think so. I think that they know that there's a deep, respect there behind the rhetoric. Right?
Okay, well, so can we just say the same? Shouldn't
Maybe
we
it
assume
might
there's
be
a
that
deep
too.
respect?
But they spend a lot more time together than you and I do. We have these moments here, right? But like because we have 4 states between us, there's just not. We don't have the opportunities, unfortunately.
Dan, I'm so glad you didn't make me guess how many states were between us.
Duluth, that's in North Dakota.
Because I would have guessed more than 4, Dan.
I know. I just drove across 2 of them. Anyway, should we get through here? Do we have more things to say before we get to the recap?
Just a couple of notes. First of all, I do not care for these early morning Vikings games on Sunday morning. Let me start there. I mentioned many times on the show, Dan. Sunday mornings, it's church. It's what you got to do. And I'm watching. Yeah. I'm usually watching the first little bit of the Vikes game on delay anyway because I'm late coming home from church. Well, so now I got to get through the entire service, the whole talking after the service, and not get a single Viking spoiler. It's just not possible, Dan.
Please attempt to be a gentleman.
This is one of those times where I'm going to not sympathize with you, and I'm going to tell you how much better my situation is. So those early games are super early out here, right? They're at 6:30. I can actually watch the game and then go to church, David, so I don't have to deal with this. But and I was actually able to follow it while I was driving back today. Like, it made for a glorious time. But I didn't spoil it for you. I was tempted to say something, but I didn't because I thought maybe that was the situation. So I guess I will apologize. I'm sorry that that's your situation.
It was a bummer. Well, it's the same next week. It would bother me infinitely less if that wasn't going to be the same exact situation next week.
I know. I'm so sorry. We should say one more thing. So, good old Carlos Correa, David.
Why are you so obsessed with me?
Well, also, we need to mock him for this, too.
I want to build a championship culture.
Mr. Championship Culture himself is not going to make the playoffs. And somebody was circulating the playoff percentages graphs on X. I forget who it was. I wish I could give credit. But then basically, he's been part of the 2 great collapses. Now, I realize the Astros wasn't a total collapse, but the fact that the Astros didn't make the playoffs makes me super happy right now and kind of vindicates the Twins for getting rid of him.
I wouldn't go that far. But I don't have a problem, but I'm not going to use this as justification for the Twins letting Correa go. But no,
I will use everything to justify that, David.
Okay. Well, let's jump into the series recap here, Dan.
Series recap.
Game 1, Twins lose this one 3-1. Joe Ryan with a decent outing. 5 innings pitched, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 9 Ks. And the earned run, Dan, believe it or not, came on a solo home run. Would you believe that?
Shocking. I think it was to the number 9 hitter as well. Wasn't it one of those unforgivable home runs that Joe Ryan seems to give up on the regular?
It's his thing, Dan. It's sort of what represents Joe Ryan best is solo home runs given up to inadequate fielders. Anyway, the Phillies, they do get an unearned run in the first after Eddie Julian misses a catch. Just a real strong showing for a guy who's going to be desperately trying to make this roster next year.
Oh, Canada.
Aaron Nola on the other side for the Phillies, absolutely dealing. He takes a perfect game into the 6th, which, quick shout out here, Hogs, stop it. I know the games don't matter, but dear goodness, I don't care that you're only giving me inklings of what's happening. But if you text perfect game 30 times in a text message, clearly I know that's against the Phillies. It's not like Joe Ryan has taken a perfect game into the 6th.
Hold on, no, but you mentioning this is just encouraging him to do it more, you realize.
Whatever. I will block him if I have to, Dan. Until next season, I'll just keep.
Can't you just silence the text conversation we have in the texting app?
I could, but what if there's an emergency, Dan? What if you need to contact me for some reason?
Through that, there's no other way. I have my own thread with you, David. We could do it that way.
I suppose that's possible. But anyway, so he takes a perfect game into the 6th. There's 2 outs in the 6th, and wouldn't you have guessed it, Christian Vazquez kills both the perfect game and a shutout with a solo home run. So Phillies lead now 2-1 at this point. Travis Adams enters in the 6th and has a rough go, which is sort of just, I guess I could have just said Travis Adams enters, but he goes 1 1/3 innings pitched, 2 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 1 strikeout. Top of the 9th, though, Dan, the Twins faced Ron Duran for the first time.
It's Johan Duran, not Duran Duran. You sound like you're talking about the 80s band.
Don't forget to bring a towel.
Dan, he no longer pitches for the Twins. I no longer have to say his name correctly. But so the Twins face him for the first time. Vazquez singles, which makes sense, of course. And then Buxton goes down on 3 straight strikes. Clemens goes down on strikes, and then Jeffers singles, but Larnach flies out to end it. So that's your first sense of what this trade deadline meant for the Twins. But going into Game 2, Twins win this one 5-0. Mick Abelden making his case for the rotation next season. 6 innings pitched, 3 hits, a 1 walk, 9 Ks. 9 strikeouts you're going to find as a theme in this particular episode for some reason. But Buxton continues raking from the leadoff spot, hits another leadoff home run, so the Twins are up 1-0 at this point. Top of the 4th, the Twins get another after back-to-back singles from Clemens and Lee, then a ground out by McCusker. The powerhouse, the Minnesota-grown Aaron Judge powerhouse scores Clemens. Twins are up 2-0 at this point. Top of the 5th, James Outman leads off the inning with a solo home run. 436 feet, Dan. This one is where the big boys hit it.
Crazy, too. And what was funny is then Ryan Fitzgerald in the 7th hit a home run as well. So the Twins are up 4-0. I love your note here that Phil Miller could ask either one. He can equivocate here. He doesn't have to be able to tell the difference. Just ask him about their home run. Martin walks. Jeffers comes through with an RBI double. So it's 5-0 through 7. And the bullpen does a nice job closing things out. Pearson Ole in his final outing of the season because the Twins got rid of him after Game 2. They They sent him down to the minors after this game because Rocco needed more players. But 2 innings pitched, 3 Ks. Funderburk goes an inning, 2 hits, 1 strikeout. And then we get into Game 3, a quick, quiet game for the most part here. SWR had his final start of the season goes 6 innings pitched, 1 hit, 9 Ks. Now, I know that the Phillies weren't necessarily trying very hard to win this game. It was like everybody got a couple innings and then they were going to send them, basically go through everybody. Though they're this situation, but they're going to have these 5 or 6 days off here. So I'm curious to see how they go in the playoffs here. But yes, in the first 5 innings, just 2 base runners between either team. Top of the 6th with 2 outs, Martin walks. Jeffers hits an RBI double into the corner. Tommy Watkins with the aggressive send here of Austin Martin. And even Corey Provis was making a joke about Tommy Watkins' arms being tired after all that windmilling.
Well, did you see? Yeah, so then Austin Martin got some water, which I thought was for him. It was actually for Tommy Watkins, Dan, which at the same time, I was watching the Ryder Cup. You've got Shane Lowry has a putt to retain the Ryder Cup. I'm not going to get into the minutia of the scoring of the Ryder
Please,
Cup here.
Thank you, yeah.
But he jumps around and celebrates a ton. Not a great look for the athleticism of golfers, Dan, is what I'll say. He was out of breath for a good 20 minutes after the celebration. He's trying to get an interview done, and he's like, far be it from me to mock anybody's physical fitness, Dan. But there is a point if you're a professional athlete. There should be a bar, right?
Yeah. Well, golfers, are they athletes? I guess that's really the question, David. Nor am I one to mock. We're going to get the chance to mock Hogs later, by the way. I'm looking forward to that segment a little bit later. Top of the 7th, Twins do have a great chance to add to the lead with 1 out. Lee walks, Larnach doubles, Fitzgerald walks, and the bases are loaded with 1 out. But mighty Christian Vazquez and James Outman both strike out to end the inning. Bottom of the 7th, Misavich came in. Sure. He was actually the guy that got called up and sent Pearson Ole down. It is kind of a cool story, right? He's been rehabbing for a long time. So I love that Rocco was able to get him in. He struggles. He gives up a hit and a walk. And then Patch Adams enters and gets 2 force outs to end the inning. Because he's like a patch, David. So he fills in the gaps.
I understand, man.
And then bottom of the 8th. Thank you. Bottom of the 8th, old friend Max Kepler leads off the inning with a solo home run to right center. I got more things to say about Max a little bit later. That ties the game at 1. And then top of the 9th, Rocco's does things like he hasn't all season. Lee singles Kersey Jr. with the bunt off a lefty. Thank goodness. Fitzgerald flies out, though, and Vazquez again comes up at a big spot and strikes out. And then nothing doing for the Phillies in the 9th. Rocco opts not to bunt. In the top of the 10th, that obviously gets them 0 runs. But the Phillies do sack bunt and then sack fly. And they win the last game of the season. And so that's the end of the season, David, for the Minnesota Twins.
You know what you need regardless of the season? You need solid internet performance, Dan. And listen up, Minnesota, there's a new high-speed internet sheriff in town. Gateway Fiber has landed in Blaine, Brooklyn Park, Champlin, Coon Rapids, Maple Grove, and Plymouth, with plans to extend deeper into Minnesota. Gateway Fiber boasts a fiber optic network that exceeds the capabilities of some of the biggest players in the business, giving you more whiz for less cost for all of your online working, streaming, gaming, and whatevering. With no hidden fees, no data caps, and and no installation fee. Gateway Fiber is perfect for your home or business. Go to gatewayfiber.com to get fast, reliable, and affordable high-speed fiber.
Catch 'em all, Kirby Puckett! Puckett's Picks winner.
They said it couldn't be done.
Yeah,
Dan, they said it couldn't be done, but why not me? Why not now, Dan Thompson?
Okay.
Why not me now?
We didn't say it couldn't be done. We just said it wouldn't be done. And then it was. You had this remarkable finish. Now, you backed in, actually, here, because the listeners won for you. It's your little shield. Buxton gets the win with 2 points. He has the tiebreak over your guy, Lee. So I guess, you were in a good situation there. You had talked about picking Jeffers. Jeffers actually ended up being the best, and you even jinxed yourself there on that.
I knew he would. I knew he would. As soon as I said that, I was like, oh, yeah, he's definitely going to get the victory there.
Hogs had -1 point. I had -3. Hogs just needed a win to do it. And if Martin had a better game in game 3, he might have been able to do it. He struck out 3 times, though. I needed much more. I needed the bonus, too. So I needed a very big series out of Lewis. He let me down. And so, David, you claim the victory here. 17.5 points on the season. Hogs and I finished tied for second with 16.5. Hogs did beat me. Actually beat both of us in total points. He had 228. You had 184. I had 150. Listeners finished with 13 points and 145 on the season. But congratulations, David. You have won our meaningless game here at the end of the season.
I want to build a championship culture.
Dan, for some reason, I think the meaningless language wouldn't have shown up in this episode had you won the title here, Dan.
It would not, but I went in on a pretty bad drought here. I lost my last 8 series here. So I really think that Hogs and I just gave this away more than you won it. That's what I'm going to tell myself.
That's not
here.
okay. First of all, we'll go through the stats in our season recap show, but I won, Dan. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I won 7 of the last 12. You guys gave it to me. Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
All right. Well, I guess we didn't give it to you. All right. Fair enough. You win. You win. Let's move on here.
Don't condescend to me like you're conceding a point because you don't believe it. It's 1,000% accurate. The stats bear it out, Dan. I don't care for your condescension. Yeah, you better. Let's go Beast versus Bench.
Beast versus Bench.
Is losing fun? Is losing fun?
I gotta go Buxton and Lee for ensuring that I won Puckett's picks. And maybe I should give it to Austin, really, because he struggled so mightily, and that was the biggest fear I had, is that he was going to have a big game 3. But Buxton looks great. It's so sad to see what a great season he had, just the way that the Twins squandered it. Like, it's so cool to see how healthy he was. Yeah, he had a couple of small stints on the IL, but you're telling me you wouldn't take this every season from Byron Buxton? Absolutely you would, Dan Thompson.
Yeah, his best season ever, I would say. I know that he had a great season early on. I think it was 2017, but this was much more meaningful given the scope. But I'm sure we'll talk more about that on the season recap, but just with more context for that. I went with Ryan Jeffers coming back. He had 6 hits in this series. He looked like the catcher the Twins are going to need him to be. I'm going to talk more about the catching situation a little bit later, but he's my beast. As for Bench, I am going to go with Lewis for letting me down here. He had the opportunity to really come through for me and really to add more OPS to his stats to maybe help him in arbitration. So really, I think Royce kind of let himself down here too.
Dan, I'm not even going to give a bench. I'm going to give a second beast. I'm breaking with protocol.
You're doing that.
Here.
I did that a couple of episodes ago, too.
Yes, it just needs to happen because the starting pitching, Dan.
Yes.
These were some great outings. I'm super curious what's going to happen in this offseason. If they hang on to Pablo and Ryan, even if they can put together, 5 runs a game, and they can, well, that's a lot of runs, actually, now that I'm saying that out loud. Like, 5 runs is seeming a little bit crazy. And knowing that we don't have a bullpen still, it's like, okay, this is what I'll say. We will have a very good starting rotation if they don't trade anybody from the starting rotation options, but I still don't know if we're going to win any baseball games is the problem, Dan.
You underestimate my power.
I think that's for Jeremy Knoll. Is that the GM's name? Jeremy Knoll?
Zoll.
Zoll. Right? Sorry. See, yeah. I don't even know who the guy is. It's the weirdest thing.
Okay, this is the craziest thing. I'm so glad you brought this up, Dan, because they kept showing his name and title on the screen as if it was impressive to us or something. I'm not exactly sure. But his title, Dan, is Senior Vice President, General Manager. I don't know what any of those words mean, Dan. Is he a senior vice president under the general manager, or is he the general manager and also a senior vice president? Also, senior vice president is the dumbest title name I think I've ever heard. Like, you're a vice president or you're not a vice president. How many levels of vice president do we need? Vice is already second, Dan. You don't need to have all of these iterations of vice president. It's president, vice president, then anything else. There's no senior, there's no middling, there's no junior vice president. It's president, Vice President Dan.
Fans want an ejection. There he goes. And that was Gardy's gripe.
Once again, questioning the structures of the Twins management, David. That's going to get you kicked off every time.
Just let me see the org chart, and then I can explain it to them in
There is no org chart,
like
David. That's the whole point. It's just everybody showing up and doing their own thing for a few days.
It's Polad, it's Falvey, it's Rocco, then everybody else is just on the same plane.
All right, well, speaking of other management situations, let's go on to Rocco's Rewind.
Rocco's Rewind.
So I just think this is kind of nice that even on the last day of the season, Rocco is still managing his little heart out, right? He's making roster moves. He's bringing in pinch hitters, David. He pinch hit Larnach, who had a double, and then he pinch ran for him right after that. Like, that is not a manager who, first of all, has checked out, right? I think Rocco realizes that this is not his last day as Twins manager. And the second thing...
Hang on. Some might argue that's exactly why he made those moves, because it's his last opportunity, Dan.
No, it's not. He just sees how it's that muscle memory for him where he's got to keep doing it. Otherwise he might stop. And more seriously though, I think Rocco has really managed well here down the stretch here with no pressure on anymore, seemingly. And maybe that's just the best way. Rocco just needs to pretend like the Twins aren't any good every time he goes out there to manage.
I see this as an absolute win.
Yeah.
He's the guy, Dan. Well, Aaron Gleeman found an interesting stat, Dan, because he was curious, when's the last time a team had such a crazy win streak that the Twins had and still go on to lose 90 games. So this is Gleeman at The Athletic. He writes, this season's Twins stand alone as the only MLB team in the past 20 years to have a winning streak of 12-plus games and finish with at least 90 losses. In fact, they're the only team in MLB history to do that, joining the 2004 Tampa Bay Rays, who went 70-91. But what's weird about that, Dan, the Tampa Bay starting center fielder, Dan, was our guy Rocco Baldelli.
You just can't make that stuff up. You gonna play the llama sounder?
Yeah, I'm a llama again.
We don't use that nearly often enough. Dan.
No, we don't. That's brilliant. I mean, what are the odds? That poor man. He's been through this twice, and he didn't even say anything to anybody. That's crazy.
I mean, depending how you view the collapse last season is historically bad also. 3 times, and he's involved in all 3 of them, Dan?
That's a bad omen. That's bad juju, I think.
Well, but how much does him breaking the postseason streak counter these
You would
crazy...
think that it would counter it some way, but I don't think it has. This poor. I mean, maybe it had more to do... Well... the 90 losses this year had more to do with trading away your top 5 bullpen arms into the season.
Yeah.
That wasn't anything Rocco did. But, well, hey, let's go on here to a couple Minnesota moments here.
Minnesota moment.
So, Game 3 of this series was the first time we saw Max Kepler actually play for the Phillies. And I thought this was strange that we saw him out there in center field. And I had to go back, I had to replay the game a little bit. Now, I don't believe he's actually even played center for the Phillies at all this year. Because I was looking back at his splits, and maybe I misread this, but he's played some left field and some right field, but he hasn't played center field yet for the Phillies. Isn't that strange? That he comes out here, and the only time he does that is against the Minnesota Twins?
I don't know what to tell you here, Dan.
That's not, that has to be on purpose. That has to be him saying to his manager, dude, can we go do this thing just so I can show the Twins that I actually can play center field? I just didn't want to for them.
Maybe?
Right? He complained so much about, I don't play anywhere but right field. And granted, as we saw Matt Wallner try to play right field, it's a tricky right field. Max Kepler had that thing figured out. But you're telling me he never could have slid over and played center all those times we watched all those other guys play center field?
It is a little funny because primarily he's played left field actually this season for the Phillies, which we knew initially when he signed with the Phillies that he was going to play left field. That was a conversation that was had. But you are right. It is a little bit funny that the only appearance he has in center. But you would think him and Buck are still tight. It feels a little bit weird to do that to I don't know exactly what he's trying to say here.
I don't know. And it could just be, probably the more logical explanation is that the Phillies were just, shifting guys around. They used basically every position player in this game. So they just needed somebody to play center field. But I thought that was hilarious that of all the times to play center field, it's in the last game of the season against the team that he told he would never play center field for again.
Yes, fair enough, Dan. That's a fair... Again, you're kind of keeping your streak of negativity going today. So I'm going to go here in a more positive direction. I'd say this is surprising, okay?
I agree.
So Dan Hayes at The Athletic writes this article about Joe Ryan and his last outing and just how things have gone for him. And he asked him about the moves made at the deadline. I'm going to read the quote and then I have a couple of thoughts here. But he says, at the end of the day, I see the big picture and the decisions they've made, and I think they're good, and the trajectory of the organization is positive. I think they're doing a really good job of working with what we have and making the right decisions on the field right now. And then he gets into more specifics about which guys he likes and how the starting rotation looks really good. But my question here, Dan, that doesn't sound like a guy who's not looking to sign an extension with, because if you remember after the deadline, and maybe it was a little bit more raw, but when they asked Buck about this, a guy who bleeds for this team, right? Totally. Who we all love so much because of how much he says that he loves the Twins and how invested he is in the organization. But when they asked Buck about this, he was like, well, I got a no trade clause. Like, I'm going to be here. But you could tell, like, in his tone and just sort of his demeanor, he was not thrilled with all of the moves they made at the deadline. And so I just think it's funny that Joe Ryan, a guy who will easily fetch quite a price on the open market, Dan, as far as trades go in this offseason. It's confusing to me that he's so positive about these moves unless he was thinking he does want to be here long term.
It seems like an about face from what Joe Ryan was saying a little bit earlier this offseason, just kind of in his own reaction about the thought of him being traded at some point. I know there was an erroneous report. What I do think is telling here is that I don't think Joe Ryan is a sugarcoater. So I don't think that he would just be coming out and saying this if he didn't really believe it.
That's what I'm saying.
And that's the encouraging part. It actually means more coming from him than it would from, I don't know, almost any other player on the team. So that is encouraging that he thinks that. And you do look at the starting rotation. You mentioned this earlier. That's a pretty good 7 with those guys there. And you need 7 starters to get through a season. I would think Abel's probably number 7 right now. And there's maybe some debate over who's number 6, but that's an encouraging thought from Joe Ryan.
Yeah, very surprising. But I think with that, Dan, let's go ahead and push to Maurer's music.
I just don't know how it can get any better.
Maurer's musings.
This got brought up on the broadcast multiple times because Christian Vazquez made this heroic return. And I say that somewhat tongue-in-cheek, but also not, because the guy had a nasty arm infection that kept him out for a long time. To see him come back was genuinely really cool. But again, the starting pitchers, I feel like I'm coming across as so superstitious here this episode.
I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious.
But you can't tell me that it's a coincidence that the Twins starting pitching gets a whole lot better as Christian Vazquez returns and catches a lot of these guys. And so I wonder, at what price could the Twins and Christian Vazquez meet in the middle for some kind of a contract for a year or two to re-sign?
$3.5 million.
And do you think, I know that you're no market analyst here for baseball. We don't know these things necessarily, but I can't imagine he's going to get the $10 million a year he's getting now, right?
Not a chance. You can value defensive catchers, certainly. I do think the market will skew a little bit just because Cal Raleigh has shown himself to be just like this offensive powerhouse from the catching position. Obviously, that's an exception to the rule as far as catchers hitting. And 3.5 is probably a little light. I bet he gets like 5.5 actually on the open market. I don't know if that's where the Twins are going to allocate money though, Dan. So I think that if the Twins truly want to sign him, he might give him a little bit of a discount. But I guess it kind of comes down to Vazquez. He's got 2 rings. So how much of it is money and how much of it is wins? Because if it's money, it's funny because the Twins aren't going to give him much money compared to anybody else. And if it's rings, the Twins aren't going to offer much there either, Dan.
But is it stability? Like for his family?
Yeah,
he's
that's
been here
what
for
I'm
3
saying.
years,
Yes.
right? And you figure, stick around. And I hope so. I hate to say it because the Twins prospects that they got, the 2 catchers are they're 18 and 19 years old right now. So they're not ready yet. So I think you need another year. I think we're looking at potentially another year of Vazquez and Jeffers, which I can't believe that I'm saying that now, but I actually kind of like the fact that Christian Vazquez could be catching these young arms and hopefully get them through some of those early troubles as a starting pitcher.
I don't know that I'm willing to say that because the Twins have been so set at the catching position at this point. I just think that bring in somebody else to mix things up a little bit. But I suppose if really all you're looking for is a season of development, right, for these young guys, then sure, bring them back. But it does feel not good, I guess, to say oh man, I'd be really excited about the prospect of Christian Vazquez returning to this roster.
What is your musing?
So it's baseball related, but really it has to go with going into the postseason and actually as the NFL season kicks off. This is my question. You have a buddy and you're watching a game with him, right? And let's say it's a sport that you don't even really care about. So I'll give you a real life example. I started watching soccer for some reason, right, Dan? And I'm following the Bundesliga in Germany, okay? And I cheer for a team that's in that league. You come over to my house to watch a game. and I'm cheering for my team from this league, and they're playing some other team that you have no horse in this race. You don't care at all. Would you cheer with me for my team or for the other team against my team?
Okay, first of all, can you name me a German city, please?
Berlin.
Oh, good. Okay.
Duluth, that's in North Dakota.
All right, guys, I just want to make sure you could name a German city. So, yes, I would totally cheer for the German team that you are rooting for if I don't have a horse. Absolutely, because there's a camaraderie, right? And you want to be there with your friend. Sometimes you can, my analogy, my buddy here is a Padres fan. I will cheer for the Padres largely because of him, right? Because I know he's so into it, right? But if I had my own rival team, say from Munich, that I was rooting for, all bets are off in that situation, right?
Definitely, right? So this is where it gets funny to me a little bit, because I was at an event a couple of weeks back, and I have a buddy who's a big South Carolina football fan, right? So he's a Gamecocks guy, and the game's on the TV, and a couple of guys are cheering against the Gamecocks, and I'm like, why do you guys, I forget if it was the Vanderbilt game or the South Carolina State game. I was like, oh, are you guys big Vandy fans or something? And no, we're just cheering against South Carolina because he likes them.
Boo.
And that felt...
Why would you do that? That's so juvenile.
It felt weird to me in the moment. It felt weird because, like, NFL is tricky, I think, a little bit because it's 32 teams and, like, a lot of times the matchups do matter for such and such a reasons, right? But college football, if you don't
like 300 teams. You don't have to,
that's the thing. So I have two buddies, really close buddies, who are both went to Iowa State. So I cheer for Iowa State sort of vicariously through them, right? And it's like, I'm not going to be like, well, I'm cheering for Iowa against Iowa State because I want to razz you guys. Like, I just don't know. Like, the whole part of, like, being part of fandom is to enjoy each other's company and, like, celebrate. So it's so counterintuitive to me to watch people be like, oh, well, no, I got to cheer against him because my buddy wants them to win. I'm like, this is weird what's happening.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to pick that thread up in the headlines. But first, we got to go back and grade this series here against Phillies.
Series grades.
Yeah, I'm going to give him a C. You had a chance to win 2 of 3 against a team that still has good guys on it, even if they don't really care at the moment as they are getting ramped up for the postseason. But the starting pitchers are making statements. The young guys are hustling. They're clearly hungry. They want to perform next season. But it's just, it's so hard, Dan, when you don't know what's coming in this offseason. But I'm going to give them a C for this series in particular, sure.
So with momentum, I think heading into the offseason, I think this was still a positive to play the Phillies well, like you said, and some good starting pitching. I gave him a +1 there. Decision making, I thought, was just kind of as it's been. Ho-hum, nothing good, nothing bad, really. But then, the play of Buxton and Ryan here in this series and Jeffers coming back, I gave him a +2 on the old guys. And the young guys, I think there was a lot of really positive things out of them, too. We saw SWR, we saw Martin play well, so I'm giving him a +2 there. You translate that to the 20-point scale, and that's a 17 out of 20, David. It's a B, which is pretty good.
That's not bad, Dan. Not bad at all.
You know what else isn't bad at all, David? Is being out on a lake. It's a great way to live your life here, even as the summer wanes into fall. But when you find yourself in a busy boat or a cramped pontoon, when everyone has brought their own cooler, it's the moment you realize you need an aqueduct from Rave Sports. Don't just settle for the weaker option from the other guys. Because if you have a Lily, you're just being silly. The aqueduct from Rave is the goat of the float. Unlike the saggy, hard-to-roll-up competition, the aqueduct blows up easy, and it's the perfect 10x10 size, and is just as sturdy as the dock you walked out onto your boat on. Pick up an aqueduct on ravesports.com. Remember to use the promo code PULLTAB for 20% off your order. Rave Sports, make waves.
I don't know, Jack. It looked like Herbeck pulled him off the bag.
Herbie's headlines.
Okay, before we get into the MLB headlines happening, Dan, there's a podcast headline that I want to talk about. So Hogs has mentioned this on the show, that with our whole My Twins rewards, one thing that he was able to get with his points, we don't need to rehash that whole segment again, but he was able to get in to take batting practice on the field of Target Field. And Hogs is convinced that he's going to hit a home run with a wooden bat at Target Field, which Hogs also makes it sound like I have downplayed his athleticism in previous episodes. I don't know that have I done that, Dan? Have I downplayed Hogs' athleticism?
You just mocked it, I think, more than you've downplayed it, I suppose.
Oh, that's a totally different thing. No, I think
it's
Hogs
absolutely
is very athletic.
It's very
I
different.
think,
Yeah.
No, I am very impressed by a lot of the things that he's done and the races that he's run. But him saying that he's going to hit a home run at Target Field using a wooden bat is insane. And he is very convinced. And one thing about Hogs, one thing I will mock openly is Hogs has a, what do you call it when someone has delusions of grandeur constantly? Dan, is there a word for that?
Like a syndrome, I think, like a delusion syndrome or something like that.
I don't believe that man's ever been to medical school.
So Hogs has offered this up as a potential bet. And so I have taken him up on the bet. And so here are the stakes, folks. If Hogs hits a home run with a wooden bat at Target Field, proper distance, like no shenanigans here. Like, no, he has to hit it from home plate over the fence to be a true home run. I will have to wear a Packers cheese head for the entire postseason wrap episode, Dan.
That's a long episode, too. I mean, that's
it is.
Not,
I'm worried about
nothing.
It. He's convinced he can find one to fit my big head, but we'll see if he can. So if Hogs is unable to hit a home run, he has to come and spend an entire evening playing board games with him.
That's fantastic. Oh, my gosh.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good right there.
So I do have a question about this, though, Dan. Do I play games that I think that he would enjoy, and like, because I'm often convinced that people say they don't like games, it's because they've had a couple of bad experiences where people don't understand like how to teach people board games and like which games would fit a room nicely, you know? Or do I make him play something that is just really brain burny and like a long rules explanation and like everything that Hogs would not like?
I mean, this goes back to your thing, like, do you root against the team your buddy's rooting for? Like, I feel like the gentlemanly route here is to actually, like, because you really want him to leave that night thinking, dang, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yes,
right?
And that is likely how I'll treat it, and that's just kind of who I am as a person to begin with. But,
right, you're a decent person, yes.
Yes, but it is funny to me because I have like a couple of games in my mind that I'm like, I'd have it set up on the table, and his mind would just like melt as soon as
Maybe
he
you
walked
set up one of those, and it's just like a gotcha, like a just kidding kind of thing. That's what I would.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's go into the headlines here. We'll catch you folks up on that at the end of the season. But so, Dan, who wins the MVP race here? Is it Judge or is it Raleigh?
So I think that it's actually this is what an interesting.
All rise for Dan's Judge love.
This is really putting me in an awkward spot, right? Because if I could have two, well, my love for Judge exceeds my enjoyment of watching what Cal Raleigh's been doing, right? It should be Judge, right? Judge has had this remarkable season. You can read about, Jason Stark talks about this on The Athletic and other spots. That said, the best argument that I've heard, and I think this was, I was listening to the Mariners radio broadcast, what Cal Raleigh has done as a catcher, I think is remarkable. Maybe I was listening to Hogue say this for something. Who knows? Maybe it might have been Hogue's. I'm stealing his thunder. But that has to take a factor into that this has never been done by a catcher, not nearly to the degree that he's done it. So that would be the best argument. But then are you cheapening the MVP by giving it to Raleigh and ignoring the season the Judges had?
It does get tricky if you're working in variables outside of the traditional numbers. But isn't that what an MVP is about, Dan? Like taking into account all factors, not just looking at the stats. Because if you only looked at the statistics, you would always have the winner without ever needing to vote on it.
Sure, and we have awards for those sorts of things that are statistically based. If it's the most valuable players to his team, it's Raleigh. He has meant everything to this team and everything to that city of Seattle right now. So under that metric, I'd go with Raleigh.
I like the way we just had this conversation because I think I lean Cal also, but I don't know how much my anti-Yankee bias is coming into play here.
Sure.
But I do think both of them are certainly worthy, and I think you can make arguments on both sides. Jason Stark makes the most compelling case for Judge, I think, just because he lays out, like, look at the seasons historically. Guys who have come close to this, going through all the way back to the 20s, Dan. But I just think that you watch Cal Raleigh and you watch those Mariners, I'm excited to root for them in the postseason is all I'm saying, Dan.
So you have another note here about the Mariners. The guy who caught Cal Raleigh's 60th home run ball, and that was his total, gave it to a kid. I fully endorse giving baseballs to children, David. But when the baseball is worth, 6 figures? Do you make an exception to your, like, how much is your standing as a gentleman worth?
Because this isn't like a straight like integrity thing, right? Like it's not like the option isn't you have to give the ball away or you're a bad person.
Sure.
Right. You know what I mean? When you catch a ball and there's a young kid there, it's a good thing to do. But I don't think like, oh, you're a terrible person if you hang on to it.
Of course not.
In this moment, Dan, I think other thoughts about you if you're willing to give this ball away. Like, because you have to think if he's there for that moment, he has to know. Like, that's the part that
right?
is confusing to me. Like, did he know? And I hope he's very, very wealthy. I guess it's sort of my takeaway here that like this money would mean nothing to him. But if you're sitting in left field, Dan, and you're sitting pretty high up there, I have to think money means something to you in this moment.
Yeah, according to his LinkedIn, he's a hydrogeologist at Strata Geosciences. So I don't know.
That sounds like a guy who just drinks a lot of water. Dan.
He studies a lot of water, I think. Anyway, we hope him all the best there. But yes, good on the 12-year-old apparently who he gave it to. I wonder what will happen there. Did they give the ball back to Cal Raleigh in the end, or what happened?
So the boy and his father got to go meet Cal Raleigh, and they traded the ball for a signed bat by Raleigh, and then they got to go attend batting practice to a future game. And then they found the guy who gave away the ball, and he met Raleigh, and he gave him a signed bat with like a cool inscription about the moment and things like that. And he even signed it, Dan. Big dumper.
Well, that's pretty cool. That is worth something. I don't know that it's worth $100,000, but it's a good deal.
Yeah, pretty crazy here, too. We had a whole bunch of postseason clinches here, Dan, with walk-offs. The Guardians clinched, the Red Sox clinched with walk-offs. Here's your postseason picture here, folks. We'll start with the AL. You have the 3 versus the 6. You got Cleveland versus Detroit, and the winner of that will play Seattle. And then you have Boston versus New York, Dan. It's hard to get more American than that. And the winner of that will go against the Blue Jays. On the NL side of things, you have the Reds, who snuck in over my boy Pete and his Mets. I'm a little bit bummed about that. Playing against the Dodgers. Now, Dan, that is a series. If the Reds miraculously defeat the Dodgers, oh my goodness, I may buy a De La Cruz jersey at that point, Dan, because I would be rooting so hard for them until they get to the NLCS. Because on the other side of that, you have the Phillies waiting that winner, and then you have the Padres versus the Cubs, and the winner of that will play Milwaukee. Dan, I got a lot of teams here that I'm interested in cheering for. I'd love for the Reds to do well. I'd love for Milwaukee to do well. I'd love for the Mariners to do well. Not so much anybody else. Who are you cheering for, Dan?
Well, real quick, you know who's managing the Reds, David?
Who? Dan?
Terry Francona, David.
No,
the greatest
you don't
manager
say.
of all. Yes, yeah. See, you knew that. You were trolling. All right, I see what you're doing there. I would love to see a Brewers Mariners World Series. I'm sure that the ratings do not. I'm gonna root for the Mariners against either Central team, so that makes it easy, right, to not root there. I would root for the Red Sox over the Yankees, but a Blue Jays Mariners, ALCS would be pretty cool. And then I would want whoever comes out of that bottom side of the bracket, the Brewers, the Padres, or the Cubs. That would be the team that I want to.
Over the Reds, even.
Yeah, I just think 6 seeds are nice stories in a way, but they backed into the playoffs. Like, that doesn't seem like a very good baseball team. It was that the Mets collapsed more than the Reds surged. If
the Cubs or the Padres beat the Brewers, do you still cheer against the Reds?
No, in that case, only if it were the Cubs. I would root for this is getting very convoluted. I'm just going to give you my top teams and let people sort it out. In the NL, it would be Brewers, Padres, then Reds. And then in the AL, it would be Mariners, and then Blue Jays, and then probably Tigers after that.
Tigers over Boston?
Well, yeah, I think so. They're a central team.
I thought our rules, though, about you cheering for your buddies' teams.
Man, this is getting very, very confusing. Oh, my gosh. Well, I'll pick a hat. Hopefully I've got one. By the way, I've been getting a lot of grief out here for all of my AL West hats. Like, people have been giving me grief for my Rangers and Angels. I'm like, I'm just wearing the hat, guys. I'm sorry, I don't support the team. But anyway, now I'm wearing my Mariners here. So I will wear my Mariners here during this run.
It is a little weird to wear a hat for a team that you don't support specifically.
I'm a collector of hats. That's why I wear it. But yes.
I'm just wondering, if you were walking around with a hat that said, I like sandwiches, and people said, oh, you really like sandwiches? And you're like, nah, I just got the hat.
Well, that's different. That's not a baseball team.
Ogres are like onions.
Dan, here's what I'm going to say. Let's go on to Puckett's picks.
And we'll see you tomorrow. Puckett's picks.
No, we're not going to make Puckett's picks because we don't know who's going to be on the team. I just want to remind everybody that I won this season. Dan, is all I want to do.
You wrote in Orioles series. Is that who they open against next season?
They do. Yeah.
Oh my
gosh, I was trying to make sure that you let me do this segment so I could say that I won again, Dan.
All right. Well, I'm going to run away from this one, and I'm going to go take it into our tagline. Though I will say first, listeners, thank you for sticking with us here to the bitter end of this baseball season for the Twins. We're proud that we can put an episode together for every series. It's something that I know that David and Hogs and I really love to do. We love talking about baseball. Sometimes, even these last episodes, we're like, what are we going to talk about? And then baseball just gives us things to talk about. So thank you for listening. David, I don't know if you want to add anything to that before I send us out.
No, just truly, it's been a really fun season for us. The partnership with Pull Tab, I think, has brought in some new listeners. We've really appreciated the consistency, folks. And if you've listened to every episode this season, drop us a line just so we can say thank you. Like, it means a lot to us, the support for the show. And especially when the love for this baseball team can wax and wane so aggressively based upon ownership and other factors. We just really appreciate people clicking that download, that like, that subscribe button. Really helps us promote the show and hopefully be able to provide this content for years.
Indeed. Well, folks, folks, if you like what you hear, please tell a friend. You can follow us on X at Men for the Win, our Men for the Win Facebook and Instagram pages as well. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on your favorite platform so you're notified when new episodes are available. And if you could leave us a rating or like, we'd greatly appreciate it. If you'd like to support the show further, you can find us on Patreon. The link is in the description. Thank you for listening. And as always, go Twins.
That'll wrap up another episode of Men for the Win, a podcast hosted by David Kufis and Dan Thompson, two avid fans who appreciate well-played baseball, especially when it's done by the Twins. Thanks so much for listening, and as always, go Twins.